What's up, guys? I've got kind of a different sort of video for you here today. Think of this as maybe a bonus video because this one's going to be not as much specifically about Vanilla WoW as it's going to be more about an idea and a mindset. So this really applies to all multiplayer games, any competitive game where you're facing other players, but I think it's highly applicable to vanilla PvP. So I wanted to share it with y'all. And it's not my idea. It's the idea of this guy right here. His name is David Sirlin. David Sirlin is well known as being a successful game designer, and he also was a really good competitive Street Fighter player in the 90s and early 2000s. He was one of the best in the world when competitive gaming was still really, really young. So you're probably wondering why you should care about David Sirlin or why I'm telling you about him. Well, he was a pretty smart guy, and I think close to 20 years ago, he wrote this book called Playing to Win. I haven't read the whole thing, but there are a few passages in particular that really changed the way that I viewed multiplayer games in general, and I think made me a much better gamer in the long run. So, like I said, I think it's highly applicable to vanilla, and I want to share one thing in particular with you guys. All right, so I'm just going to read a couple of passages verbatim here. And again, I want to be very clear that these are not my words. These are not my ideas. This is the work of a man named David Sirlin. I'll link his website in the video description. Introducing the scrub. The derogatory term scrub means several different things. One definition is someone, especially a game player, who is not very good at something, especially a game. By this definition, we all start out as scrubs, and there's certainly no shame in that. I mean the term differently, though. A scrub is a player who is handicapped by self-imposed rules that the game knows nothing about. A scrub does not play to win. Now, everyone begins as a poor player. It takes time to learn a game to get to a point where you know what you're doing. There is a mistaken notion, though, that by merely continuing to play or learn the game, one can become a top player. In reality, the scrub has many mental obstacles to overcome before anything actually going on in the game. The scrub has lost the game before it even starts. He's lost the game before even deciding what game to play. His problem? He does not play to win. The scrub would take great issue with this statement because he usually believes that he is playing to win, but he is bound by an intricate set of made-up rules that prevent him from ever truly competing. These made-up rules vary from game to game, but their character remains constant. Let's consider two groups of players, a group of good players and a group of scrubs. The scrubs will play for fun and not explore the extremities of the game. They won't find the most effective tactics and abuse them mercilessly. The good players will. The good players will find incredibly overpowering tactics and patterns and use them. As they play the game more, they'll be forced to find counters to those tactics. The vast majority of tactics that at first appear unbeatable end up having counters, though they are often quite subtle and difficult to discover. Knowing the counter tactic prevents the other player from using his tactic, but then he can use a counter to your counter. You are now afraid to use your counter, and the opponent can go back to sneaking in the original overpowering tactic. The good players are reaching higher and higher levels of play. They found the cheap stuff and abused it. Then they figured out how to stop the cheap stuff. They know how to stop the other guy from stopping it so that they can keep doing it. And it's quite common in competitive games, many tactics will later be discovered that make the original cheap tactic look wholesome and fair. So basically what he's saying is, if you play the game, any game, with this sort of made up idea that certain things are not legitimate or overpowered or unfair or cheap, you're really limiting yourself in terms of how good you can be. The definition of being good at a game is essentially finding overpowered and highly effective tactics, patterns, and abilities and abusing them mercilessly, to use his words. Abusing them mercilessly. So this translates directly to vanilla PvP, because vanilla PvP is designed to pretty much reward whoever tries the hardest. If you want to play vanilla PvP with this like made up mindset that you're not going to use engineering because it's not fair, that's fine, but you're gonna be a scrub, and you're always gonna be outplayed by people that are willing to use engineering. by people that are willing to, you know, pop potions to get out of a tight situation. And these things might seem like they're, you know, unbeatable or uncounterable, but you know what? When that Druid flag carrier pops a free action potion and both his reflectors and a skull and he's flying through mid, if your priest is in a proper position and not stuck in CC, you know, he can dispel that free action potion. So everything has a counter, but in vanilla, you've got to play to win. You've got to use all the tools at your disposal. And if you refuse to use everything, if you refuse to play to win, you really can't complain when you find yourself losing to players that are using everything, because those guys are playing to win. So I know this is kind of off the wall. Like I said, consider this a bonus video. I just really wanted to share this with you all because it totally changed the way that I look at games. And I think it will make you a lot better vanilla player if you can kind of get into this mindset of using everything and playing to win.